Okay. Now we've been talking about financial management. Sorry. I'm just in the zone now. I see the pearly gates are opening. There must be chocolate in heaven. This is what it feels like. We've been looking at financial management this month. We've been looking at how to manage money. And we discovered that a lot of this is not taught at home. Neither is it taught at school. So we've been looking at it every week. We had a financial management workshop. But today what's going to be very special, I think you're really going to appreciate it, is we're going to have people from the congregation share what it is that they've been doing, the struggles that they've been facing, how they got over it, the lessons that they've learned, and then the things that they put into practice. And then you're going to see, okay, so everybody out there faces the same challenges. We've all got to do the same things. And then when you do those things, they all work. So that's going to be wonderful about people sharing. So those who are coming up, all right, you are now veterans. This is your second service. You had to iron out the nerves in the first service. We just want to ask you if you will stand more or less here, because we're busy recording. So won't you come up and share with us the lessons that you've learned. Let's give them a hand as they come up.
So thanks, Brett. Guys, once again, I've got 3 minutes. I'll be very quick about it. You can line up behind me there, yes. Okay. So just a few notes, and I did actually forget something in the first service. So the first thing that I've looked at 3 points when Brett asked me. I looked at earning, saving, and spending. So the first thing with earning is, who do I work for? Do I work for an employer? Do I work for my boss? I always say I work for my family. So the work that I'm doing, I work with a positive attitude because I'm not working for anyone else. I'm working for my family. In the same breath, like any small shop, you start selling a product. What product am I offering to my client? Because my employer is my client at the end of the day. And I've got to build on that. Like any small shop, you would start off maybe with 1 or 2 items, and then you increase your repertoire to your stock holdings so that you can offer people more. And that's always what I work towards. I've always tried to got my education, carry on building on that education and work harder, improve yourself and make yourself more sellable to anybody, to your clients. The second point is saving. How to approach saving. A lot of people like to come up with very quick ideas. We've seen Creon before. We've got very clever little tricks that one can do to save. You've got Bitcoin, you've got the stock exchange, all very, very complicated things. So unless you're an expert, I almost recommend staying away from those things. Save in a way that you understand. Probably the simplest way of saving is take your money, put it into a bank account. So one of the things that I do is I set a target. Exactly all the stuff that Brett's told us in these few weeks over here. It's every time Brett speaks, I actually just nod my head and I think that's the way. You're right, Brett. You're doing it exactly the way I would do it. And I'm thinking. So, yes, save in a way that you know. Take your money so what I like to do is I set a target each year, take that money throughout the year, put it into a 30-day call account so that you're not just, the money is not just floating around, and they tend to give a bit of better interest. And then the best interest that I've seen in a very simple method is a 5-year fixed deposit with the bank. You put that money away for 5 years. Every year you do that, and then after 5 years it starts paying out. You take the money from that year, add it on to that. So very, very simple strategy in saving. Obviously things like pension and that aren't included in there. Then, in terms of spending, how do you save money in spending? Is marry the right person. Make sure that you're aligned before you get married on how money gets spent. Hanley and I, we courted for 6 years and we discussed all these things. And when we got married, it wasn't a stumbling block within our relationship. So that was. And the thing that I did forget in the last service, in closing, your Christian values must shine through everything that you do. You approach these things with a Christian attitude and you apply Christian values to these things. Remember, wealth isn't all about money. That's all from me. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you. Okay, because that's my speaking.
So I don't need
So
this.
you can use that.
I don't need both, do I?
So that is the congregation is going to hear, and that's what's going to be recorded.
No
So
pressure.
3 mics.
Morning, everybody. All right, when Vaughan, we got married, we've been married for 43 years. But let me, okay. I'm not sure who gets the medal, but that's debatable. But anyway, just want to say we started from scratch. We had nothing. Nobody helped us. I mean, really, we started from the beginning. And the only thing that we could afford when we got married to eat was pilchards. So I could make all sorts of fancy things with pilchards. Pilchards and mashed potato, you just don't know. So to this day, Vaughan and I don't like pilchards very much for that reason. But we have learned through the years, through the 40-odd years, the hard way. And that is try and earn a little bit of money each month using your abilities. Every single one of you has got an ability to do something. That's why we're all so unique. What we used to do, Vaughan and I had dog training. So every Saturday we used to schlep off and we used to go and train dogs. That bought our milk and our bread for the month. And then also on top of that, we worked all day, and in the evening I used to give gym classes. That helped as well. So, I mean, we needed that extra income to survive, and that is what you must do. Couple of thoughts from being there. Don't go out and buy a pie from the garage or a juice from the garage. Hell no. Take your own, pack a little lunch, take your own juice. Much cheaper. Don't be lazy. You must rather just do with what you've got in your house. What I suggest, what worked for us really, is that I made a list of all our yearly expenses, like your licenses, your birthdays, school fees, Christmas presents, what. And you have all of those, and you divide them into the months, and you put away that amount of money every month into a certain account. So then when it's somebody's birthday, yay, we've got money for that birthday. All right, so you don't have to look for extra money. You've already got that saved, and it really works. Look after your things. Look after your things. Take care, no matter what it is. Look after them. If you've got a bond, if you're lucky enough to have a bond, pay an extra 100 Rand or whatever you can afford a month off on that bond amount, because that will come directly off your capital. And it seems a little, but that is how we did, and it worked like a charm. One more thing, eat prepared food that you've prepared. So, as you saw, worked all day, the gym at night, on the weekend we dog training. Well, how did we manage to eat? What I did was, once a week we went and bought fresh veggies. So you go to Sungate or wherever where you get cheap veggies, you cut them all up, you prepare them, and you deep freeze them. And it is much cheaper than going out into KFC or going out somewhere for an instant food, and it's much healthier for you. Just organize yourself, you can do it. Don't live on credit. And last thing, let your conscience be your guide. So if you know, this is above my pay grade, or I can't afford this, it is usually right. Listen to your conscience. Thanks for listening to me. Okay. See, I gave it to him this time.
Morning, church. We got a younger crowd here, it seems, looking at the people here today. What I first did when I first started at the mine, and there's Pino there. He was actually one of my bosses when I first started at Ramsdale Estates. So I'll have to talk very carefully. No secrets. What I did then, you get these insurance salesmen that come around once you started working, and they're trying to sell you insurance policy. So I gave in, and I gave 15 Rand a month, for that. On my salary, that was quite a big bunch of money. But after 20 years, I was able to draw out 145,000 Rand out of it. So it mounts up after time. It might not seem a lot when you're paying for it, but after 20 years, it's there. Okay. The thing at home, you can try to become a DIY expert at things. Fix bicycles. With Winnie's gym, I've got to fix bicycles. I've got to fix all the machines as well. Things like that. Guitar, I can do guitar set up as well. Try and get a good medical. Sometimes your work will provide you with a medical. Keep on with that all the time, please. It's very important. My daughter had a heart transplant 5 years ago. Our medical, I'm not allowed to mention the name, GEMS, they paid for everything. It's about 2.5 million rand worth of expenses for that. And we're still paying on a monthly fee for her anti-rejection tablets and stuff. Make sure to put the money away for your pension as well. Try and find a good financial advisor. I know these days it's fairly hard, but the FICA institution now stops people from wasting away your money. Okay, so I can provide you with a very good person who does that. Try and put away money for investments as well. That's over and above the financial guy. We only used to eat out maybe once every 4 or 5 months. Go to local Spur or the Wimpy. They know us very well down here at the mall. You stick to a budget. Try not to overspend on that budget, and in your budget make it a allowance for saving. In fact, what you should actually do, make allowance for your pension, for your medical aid, and for savings before you pay anything else. Okay, put stuff away for you, and then you can pay Peter and Paul later on. Okay. The financial thing nowadays, if you owe any money, you can always go to them and say, listen, please, I've got some trouble here. I can't pay you 3,000 rand this month. I can pay you 2.5. Okay, they will allow you to do that. Okay. The final thing here, said, don't try to keep up with the Joneses, or the Dlaminis, or the Guptas. Okay, because you probably find at the back there, they also owe the bank a lot of money. Okay, it's all keeping up with the attitude there. Right, thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Good morning, church. So I also want to share my experience as well. Well, some of the things I wish I've learned them earlier. Thank you, Pastor, for whatever you've been teaching us. It's quite very, very important. And look, in my life, there's quite a number of things which I've learned as I grew. I sound like very old, but quite a lot I've gone through. The first thing which I just want to share with you is a life of regret. There was a time where when I look back, I realized that I've lost a lot of time and money doing wrong things and investing in the wrong places and wrong advices, and blaming my parents, why didn't he help me in school, a lot of things. And look, it just weighed me down to an extent that, look, I realized that, living in this life or this phase of regret, you might live there for a long time. And while you're still there, you're just stagnant. You're not doing anything about your life. You're just stuck. And I thank God that He helped me to move over that stage and be able to start doing something for my life. And one of the things which was holding me back was my second point, cultural investment. So obviously, probably might have not heard about this word, cultural investment. Look, this is something which you learn from home. It is a family thing, or it's a society thing where they just groom you into this is the way how you should invest, this is the way how you should do things, so that when you grow older, you will be able to survive. If you're a girl, I say, look, make sure you look beautiful and be beautiful to get a man who's going to marry you and take care of you. So that's your investment. I mean, get a good man who's going to take care of you. You've never been groomed to grow up, be in charge, work, get money, invest, and lead projects and stuff. You've never been groomed to do that. You know, I grew up in a family where my grandfather owned some couple of livestock. And as a boy, he groomed me up to love these things. And, well, I damn love animals. But he made me to love them and then invest into these things. You're going to be a good man if you've got cattle, sheep, and all these things. Obviously, when I started working, this is the thing I started doing. Sending money home, buy me sheep, buy me this, buy me this. Well, 10, 15 years later, I realized that I still have got zero. Those things were dying quicker than I was saving to buy them. So I was losing. I only realized later that, look, I've lost a lot of time, a lot of money investing in this thing. It's not for me, it's not for this time, or it's not for the place where I'm living. I think I should start thinking of something else. The last thing is backwards investment. Well, something sounds new again. So this is what we learn, again, maybe in our culture or something like that. The firstborn child, parents invest a lot into the firstborn child so that when you grow up, the first 5 to 10 years of your life, you need to come back and help the family. Help your mom and dad to build at least a shelter, a proper shelter. Take care of your brothers and sisters, all your siblings, pay school fees and help them, helping your parents to do that. Eventually, what happens there is you spend a lot of time doing that, and, well, bad luck for you if you've got 6, 7 siblings. By the time you pay the school fees for the last born at home, you already have your own wife or your own husband with children. Now, when you start looking into your life, now start to invest into your own life, it's too late. Now what do? You do the same thing with your parents did. You're going to invest into the firstborn child so that when you start working, he's going to come back and help me, and the cycle goes on and on like that. So I'm in that life, in that situation where I realize all these things, and I thank God that He has given me that strength to say, look, I want to break this now. I really have to break this. I have to work double harder now than I was doing maybe in my prime years. I've got to work double harder to make sure that I've invested enough for myself and my wife when you go for retirement. Plus, I don't want my children to come back and build a shelter for me. I should do it myself. I don't want my children to come back and take the other siblings to school. I've got to make sure I invest and do that myself. Well, I might need some black taxi now and then from them, but the whole thing I have learned is to invest for myself, invest for my children, so that they start on something. When they start working, they invest for themselves going forward instead of going backwards. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, things got really a bit upside down for me when I had to run my household as a single parent. Couldn't manage a lot of things, couldn't do and buy a lot of things, and I had to revisit the budget and look into get things done the cheaper way or not at all. I said to God, God, I'm going to stand on your promises. You said you'll never leave us and you'll never forsake us. And I'm going to believe in what you say in the Bible. As I've said, I had to change the budget and I had to revisit a lot of things. But there was one thing that I said I'm not going to change on, and that was my tithing. I said, God, I cannot afford to give what I want to give to the church, but I'm going to force it through, and I know you will help me to make it happen. And that is how I had to rework things and look into things so that I can make that possible. And I can tell you today, God has restored so many things in my life. My finances, and where I couldn't do things in the past 5 years, I'm now able to do. I had to, right at the beginning, I had to tell the girls, we won't be able to buy this and we won't be able to do this. And it was not easy to do that, to say that to them. But luckily they easy girls. They understood, and they also made it easy for me to go through that difficult time. With my recovery, not 100%, but I'm at least better off than what I was before. I'm also able to give to missions, because I think that is one of the good things that we can do. We can assist others. There are so many other organizations and NGOs that we can also assist financially. So I'll also encourage whoever is here who's not giving to missions and NGOs, those people who are really assisting and helping other people, to also try and give to them. My mom helped me to see things in a different way, finances. And she taught me how to save and how to work with money. For those who are here who are struggling, who don't know how to do it, ask. There are so many people, Pastor did now the financial fitness workshop. There are so many people that you can ask around. There are people who are able to help. Don't go and don't suffer in silence. Ask and you will be helped. Thank you.
Morning, church. Well, I'll make this brief. Luckily, I'm speaking about something today that I haven't personally really experienced that much of, but it's something I saw a lot of while I was working at my secular job before I left there. And that is something that everyone's actually touched on, and it's something big that Pastor was speaking about through the last month and the financial management workshop, and that is debt. So where I was working, we were all the office staff, the head office staff, but we also had between about 150 and 200 factory employees. And obviously these guys don't earn that much, but they do earn a living and they can get on by and that. But what we saw happen time and time again was a new factory employee would come in, and then we've all been the new kid, either at school or at work. It's awkward because you're the new guy, you don't know how anything works. And then there'll be a group of guys that will befriend them and make them feel welcome and comfortable, and this is how things work and everything else. And not long after that, it will be a few weeks, they'll come to their new friend, the new guy, and go, listen, we're a little bit short this month. Can we just borrow some money from you? And he will obviously go, yes, you're my friend. Here you go, here's some money. But then after a while, you calculate how much that's actually happened, and you see how much that they've actually borrowed. And eventually the new friend goes, I actually need that money back because I'm now out quite a few thousand. And they go and look for it, and the guy goes, I'm a bit short, I don't have your money. And then one thing leads to another, the company gets involved, then everyone finds out about it, HR. As with most companies, almost anywhere, lending money between colleagues and co-workers isn't allowable. It's against company policies. So then these guys would get terminated. To the point where we even had people in our head office who were lending money to factory employees and charging them 100% interest. So if I lend you 100 Rand, you can have 100 Rand, but I want 200 Rand back in return by next Friday, or whatever the case may be. And you really saw that it was what Pastor, I don't know what the exact word you used, consumerism or consumerist or whatever it is, where people want to live up to the Joneses or do these things and not pay attention to how they're spending their money. They're just living recklessly. They get a paycheck, and we could see when payday was, because the next Monday our absenteeism rate would be through the roof because everyone was partying the whole weekend. And that's where their paychecks would get to. And so they'd just dig themselves more and more and more into debt, and then they'd borrow to try and get out of debt. So they'd borrow from Peter to pay Paul, but then they'd still need to pay Peter back as well. And it was just this vicious cycle, and it really shows you how bad it can get and how hard it is to get out of that cycle if you are in it. And I mean, it's not just in the secular community. We had it at church, at this church, where we had one person going, they were getting assistance from the church, itself, and they were going to different congregation members and asking for assistance privately. And by the time the leadership found out about it, it was thousands already. So I mean, and even then, you have to ask, you can't do this. And after speaking how many times saying you can't do this, they were asked to leave. Because you can't do that. So it's just one of the big things is debt and getting out of debt as soon as you can. So like unto Wendy said, Christy and I have had a bond for I think about 4 years now. We started over a year ago paying, it's not a lot, 200 Rand extra a month onto the bond. But it makes such a big difference if you look at the end of your bond. I think I was reading for every 100,000 that you have on your bond, 100 Rand extra a month will lower the bond by like 5 years or something like that. Something on the compound interest that works all the way back. So just those small things to get out of debt as soon as you can and then stay out of it makes such a big difference, because otherwise I've seen over and over and again how bad it can get. So it's not worth wasting all your money on a car for status, because then you're going to end up living in your car, and then when you can't pay your car, you're going to be on the street anyway. So, yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you to each one that is shared. We're starting a company at the church, RBC Advisors Incorporated. Our fees are very low. It can be as low as a packet of biltong, a chocolate, you see? I mean, you're not going to get these rates anywhere else. Let me ask you today, are you subscribed to the MTM network? Anybody here, put your hand up. Are you subscribed to the MTM network? Right. Those of you in the first service. Now I'm going to ask you to do this. Everybody, please put your hand up. Put your hand up. Hi. All right. Because you are subscribed to the MTM network. If you're here today in church, you put your hands down, thank you. If you're here in church, you are subscribed to the MTM network. You know what the MTM stands for? More than money. It's not MTN. Look at it. MTM. More than money. Because Jesus taught us, as important as it is to be wise with our finances, the Bible gives us everything you need to know about money is in the Bible. How to think about it, its true value, its purpose in life, how to earn it, how to manage it, how to not waste it, what we should do with it once we accumulate it. All of that the Bible teaches. And then at the end of the day, the Bible says that money is only a temporary thing that we're going to use on this earth. All right? So we need to keep perspective. So I'd like to read a passage of scripture, and then we're going to get to the really good part of our time together. Let's turn to Luke chapter 12, verse 13. So I'm going to read the whole passage. Please follow with me. And you're going to see that a lot of what Jesus is talking about here actually relates to our finances, our management of wealth, our attitude towards life. So Luke 12, verse 13 says, somebody in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me as a judge or an arbitrator between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." So there you have it. Jesus taught that our lives do not consist in the abundance of our possessions. But you know, many people make it their life goal to get an education, get a job, accumulate wealth, retire well, and that is the good life, without thinking that the true value of life is eternal. It's the soul and the spirit. And a lot of people make financial decisions that affect them spiritually in a bad way. So Jesus is trying to help us here keep a little perspective. So let's read the parable that he used to illustrate this. He told them this parable: the ground of a certain rich man produced a good crop. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there will store all my grain, all my goods. And I'll say to myself, you clever boy, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Retire early. Take that package. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you prepared for yourself? And this is how it will be with everyone who stores up things for himself, but is not reached towards God. Now Jesus didn't stop here, the NIV stopped there, right? So we go on to the next verse, because Jesus is still speaking, same topic, he's adding to it. Then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. So he said, life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. And now he's talking about life as well. He says, life is more than food. Right? There's more to our lives than our appetites. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than birds? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the lilies grow. They don't labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, O you little faith? And do not say in your heart, set your heart on what you will eat or drink, and do not worry about it, for the pagan world runs after such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Don't be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourself that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will not be exhausted, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, your heart will also be. Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning. So what is Jesus teaching there? This man comes up and says, my brother doesn't want to share the inheritance. And then Jesus uses that as an opportunity to first say, listen, I'm not a judge. All right? I don't want to get involved in these things. But then he said, watch out. Because this thing is going to come between your relationship. Soon you won't have a brother. Because the brother owes you money. And that's going to separate you. And really, it's your pursuit of wealth. Covetousness, greed. It's not about the inheritance. Jesus said, what you're asking me is to get involved here. But the real issue here is not about the inheritance. It's about what is in your heart. And in your brother's heart, by the way. It's greed and covetousness that is destroying this family. And that is what happens. Families are destroyed because people have messed up personal values. It's not about the money. But because people have messed up values. And they place their financial wealth above family members. So Jesus uses an opportunity. He says, watch out for greed. It's that thing that you think you got a handle on that has a handle on you. He says, well, how do you test if you've got a handle on greed? Very easy. See how much you give. See how much you give. You're either giving or you're accumulating. And if you're accumulating, you'd accumulate so much that in one lifetime you can't spend it, or you won't spend it because you're going to feel you're running out. And so you're worried about running out, so it never. And here's the thing. The center of the accumulation is, as Gareth mentioned, personal consumption and a great life. Now you can have an abundance. Your cupboards can be full. You won't share with anybody. Why? Because the mindset is everyone is here for themselves. Right? So Jesus said, you want to test whether money's got a hold of you? Check your bank balance. Check what is in your bank account and where the money goes. One of the ways to get rid or get on top of greed and covetousness is give. And he says, give to the poor. Then he seeks, and he says, be rich towards God. Because a lot of people, quite frankly, are very poor towards God. They're stingy. God gets the leftovers. God gets the second, third, fourth. If I can afford, that's when God will give. Now what is Jesus saying? That's a symptom of covetousness. It's of materialism. At the end of the day, we need to work hard to earn money. If you don't do that, you're a fool. Because money is not unspiritual. It's just one of those things that we need for life. It's what you do with it that makes it unspiritual or spiritual. So we're going to have to work hard for that. we're also going to have to manage it. And you will see that many of the people who spoke here, they're not living in the lap of luxury, right? But they are living comfortable lives, and that comfortable life meant or came as a result of practicing the things that we hear regularly from our parents, from other people, to put into practice, and they've just done it. And guess what? It does work. Then Jesus told us, look past your own personal needs. See what you can do with your money. Let your money make a difference. Then he said, look past even that. Look past this life. Look to eternity. Are you rich towards God? By comparison to what you spend on yourself, what you spend on God. Would God say, well, you're very generous towards me, and you're kind of generous towards yourself, you've got a good balance, or is the balance out of whack? And then he told us over here, don't worry. Because what I've discovered is life is bigger than you. You will never get a handle on your finances. You will never get a handle on your finances. Doesn't matter what you do, you will never. You will always feel, I don't have enough. There will always be something that comes up. And if you have a bad experience, and if your reaction to that is to worry about it, you're going to go into a way of managing money that is ultra conservative. You're going to count every cent, and then what's in your mind, you're going to start worrying. And here's what I found. Whether you worry or not, whether you try and get a handle on it or not, life is bigger than you. So now one of the things we're going to come to, and I'm going to go back to my chocolate for this. Excuse me for a minute.
Good idea. Next time, everybody. It's coming.
Didn't you guys know that there was chocolate there? You're supposed to bring your chocolate. If I save this chocolate for my retirement, I better hope that it's this chocolate, because this is one of those melt in your mouth. It better not be the chocolate with nuts, because by the time I retire, I have false teeth, and those nuts are not going to be lacquer. I'm going to put them out. Alright? Why not eat the chocolate now? Because honestly, the money that God gives should also be enjoyed now. Otherwise, by the time we retire, we may have good things stored up. Nothing wrong with that. But how many years would we have wasted enjoying life? Thinking that preserving all these things is going to be my safety net in the future. Do you know what happens in the future? No. So again, eat the chocolate. Spend the money. Save the money. Give the money. But let there be balance in life. Amen. Amen. So